Close your eyes for a moment and imagine drifting into the quiet of space. Around you, there is no sound, only the hush of an endless dark ocean, sprinkled with countless points of light. Every star looks eternal, every orbit feels steady, every movement predictable. But every so often, something unusual cuts across that calm, like a stranger stepping into a silent room. In the story tonight, that stranger is a comet named 3I divided by Atlas, one of the rare visitors from beyond our solar system. Before we begin, I want to remind you of something important. This channel is meant to be your companion in those hours when the world grows still and your thoughts are looking for somewhere to settle. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you feel like sharing a little part of your world, leave a comment with your location and the time you're watching this. It's always wonderful to imagine people across the globe listening under different skies, at different hours, yet all drifting together toward the same gentle rest. Now, let's open the first page of our journey. Comets are some of the most ancient wanderers of the cosmos. They are made of ice, dust, and fragments, older than our planet, older even than our Sunday. To see one glide across the heavens is to watch time itself stretch back billions of years. They have terrified, inspired, and puzzled humankind for as long as stories have been told. The Greeks saw them as fiery omens, messengers of the gods, while in China, records of comets stretch back thousands of years, woven into predictions of dynasties rising and falling. And yet, for all their mystery, most comets are, in a sense, family. They are children of our solar system, born in distant belts of ice that orbit the sun like silent frozen archives. They return again and again, predictable, cyclical, like Halley's Comet, which has passed close to Earth for centuries and will again. But 3I, divided by Atlas, is not like those familiar wanderers. It does not belong here. It does not orbit our sun in the way other comets do. Instead, it comes from far beyond, from the deep interstellar medium that lies between the stars. That's why astronomers place the number 3I before its name. It means this is only the third interstellar object ever observed passing through our neighborhood after ʻOumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019. Think of that for a moment. Out of the uncountable objects scattered across the galaxy, only 3 have been seen crossing into our system, and 3I divided by Atlas is one of them. Imagine Earth as a small home at the edge of a long, quiet street. Most of the traffic that passes by is familiar neighbors, friends, delivery vans you've seen before. Then one night, a vehicle you've never laid eyes on speeds past your window, headlights strange, engine foreign, carrying with it the dust of some faraway land. That is what it feels like when astronomers watch 3I divided by Atlas streak into their telescopes. It was first noticed by the Atlas Survey, a project in Hawaii designed to detect asteroids and comets that could pose a risk to Earth. Atlas stands for Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, a name that already carries a whisper of drama, as though preparing for that worst-case scenario when a rock or an icy visitor might one day be on a collision course with our world. In the spring of 2020, when so many of us were caught in the silence of lockdowns and global uncertainty, astronomers spotted this faint, ghostly traveler. At first, it seemed ordinary, another comet among the countless icy fragments orbiting the Sunday, but the more they traced its path, the more unusual it appeared. Its orbit wasn't simply stretched or tilted. It was hyperbolic, meaning it was not bound to the sun at all. Once it passed through, it would be gone forever, never to return. And the direction it came from pointed not to the Kuiper belt or the Oort cloud, but to the infinite elsewhere beyond our system. Now, if you're lying in bed, listening in the dim glow of your room, you might wonder, why does this matter? Why should we care about one more icy rock flying through the dark? Because it forces us to confront the scale of the universe. Each interstellar object is like a message in a bottle, tossed into the cosmic ocean from shores we may never reach. Its material holds clues to the chemistry of alien stars, to the building blocks of planets that formed under suns we cannot even see with the naked eye. But of course, there's another reason people care. There is a quiet, anxious question that always arises when comets appear, especially when they come from the unknown. Could they ever hit us? Could this strange, uninvited traveler be on a path that crosses with our own? And here lies the seed of tonight's exploration, the worst-case scenario. It is important to say right now that astronomers do not believe 3i divided by Atlas is any danger to Earth. Its orbit, as far as we can tell, is set to carry it safely past. But the very idea of such an object, the possibility that one day something like it might come close, has a kind of gravity of its own. It pulls on the imagination. It makes us think about fragility, about chance, about the thinness of the line between calm skies and catastrophe. As you listen, try to picture it. Not with fear, but with awe. A faint smudge of light across the heavens, its tail stretching like the brushstroke of a painter across the canvas of night. Somewhere in a quiet observatory, an astronomer adjusts their lens, records a few numbers, and realizes this visitor does not belong to us. And somewhere across the world, another scientist does the same, connecting the dots until a pattern emerges. A comet from beyond the stars, slipping silently through our cosmic backyard. That is how our journey begins, with a visitor, with a question, and with the gentle awareness that even here, tucked under blankets, drifting into sleep, we are part of something vast and unpredictable. Tonight, we will follow 3i divided by Atlas across the imagination. We will walk through history, through myths, through science and speculation. We will ask what might happen if such an object came closer than comfort allows. And we will always return to the same rhythm, the slow breathing of the universe, steady, calm, eternal. So let your shoulders relax. Let the weight of the day fall away. The comet is out there, moving on a path it has carried for countless eons, indifferent to our worries, unhurried in its journey. All you have to do is listen and drift with it through the dark towards sleep. When we think of comets, most of us picture familiar names. Halley's Comet, for example, appears in history books, medieval paintings, and even ancient tapestries. Its orbit is so regular that it is practically a character in humanity's shared calendar, always returning, always remembered. But tonight's focus, 3i divided by Atlas, has no such bond with us. It is not tied to our sun, not destined to loop back around every few decades. Instead, it is a fleeting traveler, a stranger passing through and then gone forever. Astronomers gave it the prefix 3i, short for third interstellar object. The I stands for interstellar. The two that came before it, ʻOumuamua in 2017 and Borisov in 2019, were themselves astonishing enough. Imagine waiting centuries for proof that debris from other stars could wander into our solar system, only to see 3 in the space of a few short years. It is as if the quiet ocean of the galaxy suddenly sent us 3 bottles, each containing fragments of distant, unseen coasts. ʻOumuamua was thin, elongated, tumbling strangely through space. Some speculated it might even be artificial, perhaps a derelict spacecraft from a faraway civilization. Borisov was more traditional, a comet with a visible tail, but still undeniably alien, carrying material forged under a different star. Now comes 3i, divided by Atlas. The third entry in this rare catalogue, the next chapter in a cosmic story we are only beginning to understand. Picture it. A body of ice and dust, perhaps only a few kilometers across, released long ago. So long ago we cannot measure in years, only in eons. Maybe it was nudged away from its parent star by a gravitational shove. Maybe it was exiled during the birth of its system, flung outward when planets and moons battled for stability. Whatever its origin, it has been wandering for millions, maybe billions of years, traveling a line so straight and so lonely that only now, by chance, it has crossed paths with us. Its speed tells us much. 3I divided by Atlas moves too quickly to be bound by our sun's gravity. It is like a stone skipping across the surface of a pond it enters, arcs and exits, never staying still, never sinking. For us, it is a brief glimpse of something far older than Earth itself. In this way, comets are both visitors and reminders. They belong to no one, yet they carry the memory of distant worlds. Imagine sitting at a train station in the dead of night. Most trains come and go on familiar routes. You know their destinations. Then, suddenly, one screeches through at impossible speed, its carriages unfamiliar, its signs written in a language you cannot read. You don't know where it came from, and you'll never know where it is headed. All you can do is watch it vanish into the dark. That is what 3I divided by Atlas feels like for astronomers watching the sky. There is a quiet poetry in this. The universe is vast beyond comprehension, yet every now and then it offers us a whisper, a clue, a wandering emissary from afar. For scientists, the thrill is in the data its orbit, its spectrum, the signature of the dust it leaves behind. But for storytellers and dreamers, the thrill lies in the symbolism. 3I divided by Atlas is proof that the galaxy is not empty. Stars exchange fragments the way trees exchange leaves in the wind. Our solar system is not a sealed jar, but an open meadow, where seeds drift in and out. This is why astronomers watch with such care. They do not simply chart numbers on paper. They track the path of mystery itself. When they mark 3I divided by Atlas as interstellar, they are really admitting something humbling. This object has seen stars we will never see. It has passed through regions of dust and darkness we can only imagine. It has been warmed by suns whose light may never touch Earth. And yet, here it is, glowing faintly in our telescopes, as if pausing to say hello before continuing on. What does this mean for us? On one level, it is pure science. By studying interstellar objects, we glimpse the building blocks of planets in other systems. Their chemistry might reveal what materials are common across the galaxy, what molecules dance in the icy dark between stars. On another level, though, it is philosophical. These objects remind us that we are not isolated. Even if no alien civilization has ever reached us, their suns still shed fragments that wander our way. In the end, connection does not always require conversation. Sometimes, a passing comet is enough, but there is also an undercurrent of unease. 3I, divided by Atlas, is not on a path to strike Earth, yet its very existence prompts the question, what if? What if the next interstellar object isn't so harmless? What if one day, an icy stranger on a hyperbolic orbit crosses paths too closely, and the line between observer and participant vanishes? It is natural to wonder. We live on a fragile planet, in a universe that has never promised us safety. The dinosaurs never received a warning before their comet came. Why should we expect any different? Still, tonight is not for panic. Tonight is for wonder. Picture yourself lying under an open sky, the Milky Way arching above like a river of light. Somewhere out there, 3I, divided by Atlas, is gliding, unseen to your eyes, but tracked by quiet machines on mountain tops. Its path is already set. It will not stop for us, will not alter course for our fears. And maybe that is its greatest gift, a reminder that the universe is vast, that we are small, and that sometimes the role of humanity is simply to notice. So as you drift closer to sleep, hold on to that image. A lone traveler, born under a foreign sun, carrying secrets of other worlds, now brushing past our corner of space. You and I may never know exactly where it came from, nor where it is headed, but for this fleeting moment, we share a crossing. And that is enough to remind us that the galaxy is alive, restless, filled with wanderers. If you close your eyes and imagine a comet, what comes to mind? Perhaps a glowing ball of ice with a shimmering tail, cutting across the night sky like a brushstroke of light. In many ways, that picture is correct. But with 3, I divided by Atlas, the truth is more complicated. To understand this interstellar visitor, astronomers must ask the oldest questions. What is it made of? Where did it come from? And what does its journey tell us about the universe beyond our sun? When astronomers first spotted 3, I divided by Atlas in 2020, it looked deceptively ordinary. Through their telescopes, it resembled countless other comets, faint, diffuse, a hazy blur against the stars. But the data told another story. Its orbit was hyperbolic, not elliptical. Unlike the familiar comets of our solar system, which loop around the sun in predictable cycles, Atlas was on a one-way path, entering and exiting without return. This meant it was not born here. Its ingredients, its very atoms, were formed under the light of another sun, perhaps in a system utterly unlike our own. So what exactly are those ingredients? Most comets are mixtures of rock, dust, and frozen gases, water, ice, carbon dioxide, ammonia, methane locked together in what scientists poetically call a dirty snowball. When these ices are warmed by the sun, they sublimate, creating the glowing coma and tail that comets are famous for. With 3, I divided by Atlas, astronomers suspected a similar makeup, but there were differences too. Its brightness fluctuated oddly, as if parts of it were fragile, fragmenting, or even hollow. Some scientists speculated that 3I, divided by Atlas, might be a crumbling remnant of a much larger body, a piece of interstellar debris broken apart during its long voyage. Picture a once mighty iceberg drifting across a cosmic ocean, its edges cracked by collisions, its heart fractured by invisible tides. Others suggested it could be rich in unusual ices, compounds that rarely survive in our solar system but might endure in the colder reaches of other stars' nurseries. In that sense, it could be carrying chemical recipes from a kitchen far beyond our own. Now pause for a moment. Imagine standing in an ancient library where every book was written not in ink but in starlight. Each comet, each fragment of ice, is a page torn from a volume about how planets are born, how stars form, how life might emerge. 3, I divided by Atlas, is one such page, weathered, fragile, but still legible, if only we know how to read it. This is why scientists scrambled to gather data. Observatories across the globe turned their eyes toward this faint traveler. In Hawaii, at the Atlas Project's twin telescopes, astronomers carefully charted its brightness night after night. In Europe, spectrographs attempted to break down the faint light reflected from its surface, hoping to detect the fingerprints of exotic molecules. Meanwhile, amateur astronomers in backyards across the world joined in, recording their own images, each pixel a clue in a mystery larger than life. But even with all this attention, mysteries remained. Was Atlas more fragile than it looked? Some believed it was breaking apart even as it entered our system, shedding fragments like sparks from a dying fire. If so, then by the time it exited, little would remain. Others wondered if its unusual brightness might hint at complex organic molecules, carbon-based compounds that, under the right conditions, can be precursors to life. If true, then Atlas would not just be an interstellar rock. It would be a messenger carrying the raw ingredients of biology from one star system to another. Think about that for a moment. If 3I divided by Atlas contains organics, then life's chemistry may not be confined to one corner of the cosmos. Instead, it may drift freely, scattered by comets across the galaxy, planting seeds on worlds we have never seen. This idea is known as panspermia, the theory that life, or at least its building blocks, can spread from star to star, world to world, carried in icy vessels like Atlas. Perhaps our own Earth owes some of its story to such cosmic messengers. There is something both humbling and exhilarating about that possibility. Imagine that, billions of years ago, a comet much like 3I, divided by Atlas, delivered the first spark of chemistry to a young Earth, whispering life into its oceans. Now, as we watch this visitor pass by, we may be looking at a mirror of our own origin, a reminder that we are not separate from the cosmos, but products of its restless wanderings. Still, much of Atlas remains unknowable. The telescope can only capture so much. The comet is too faint, too fast, and too fleeting. By the time instruments were trained on it, part of its structure may already have begun to disintegrate. Like a sandcastle at the edge of the tide, it was destined to crumble even as we reached to touch it. And yet, even in its disintegration, it left us something: data, memory, a story to tell. Here, perhaps, lies the most human part of the tale. Picture the scientists themselves, staring late into the night, surrounded by the quiet hum of observatories. A graduate student scribbles notes by the glow of a monitor, her coffee cold beside her. An older astronomer recalculates orbital models, numbers blurring as his eyes grow weary. They know that 3I divided by Atlas will soon vanish into the dark forever. But for a brief moment, it belongs to them, to all of us, a shared mystery, fragile and fleeting, yet rich with meaning. The origins of 3I divided by Atlas may remain hidden, buried in the light years it has traveled. But perhaps that is what makes it beautiful. Like an old postcard washed ashore, its picture is smudged, its words faded. Yet the fact that it arrived at all is miracle enough. It reminds us that the galaxy is alive, with movement, with exchange, with countless stories rushing past us unseen. So as you let your eyes grow heavy tonight, think of this comet as more than a ball of ice. Think of it as a relic, a time capsule from another Sunday. Within its frozen shell may lie atoms forged in a star that burned long before ours was born. Within its dust may rest whispers of chemistry that one day, somewhere, will give rise to oceans, forests, and perhaps even consciousness. And though it will soon be gone, the memory of its passing will linger, like the afterimage of a candle flame when you close your eyes. Long before telescopes and orbital models, long before astronomers traced the paths of icy wanderers across the sky, comets lived in the realm of story. To our ancestors, they were not frozen fragments of cosmic debris. They were messengers, omens, torches carried by unseen hands through the night. To see one blaze suddenly above the horizon was to feel the hair rise on the back of your neck. For in a world where the heavens were thought to be eternal and unchanging, the sudden arrival of a comet could only mean that destiny itself had stirred. Imagine yourself standing in an open field thousands of years ago, with no streetlights, no hum of cities, only the silence of the land and the blanket of stars. Night after night, the sky was steady, reassuring. Then, one evening, a new star appeared, but not like the others. This one grew brighter, sprouted a shimmering tail, and seemed to move across the heavens. What could it be but a sign? The Greeks saw comets as fiery hair streaming from celestial heads. Aristotle believed They were atmospheric phenomena, temporary flames in the upper air. Yet others, like the Stoic philosopher Seneca, wondered if they were bodies moving in the heavens, as real and eternal as the planets. In his writings, Seneca mused that future generations might one day understand comets as naturally as we understand the moon. He could not have known how prophetic those words would be. In ancient China, comets were carefully recorded, sometimes feared, sometimes welcomed. The Chinese skywatchers catalogued their appearances with extraordinary precision, noting shapes, colors, and durations. To them, a comet might foretell the rise of a new dynasty or the fall of an emperor. Imagine a scribe hunched over bamboo scrolls, dipping his brush in ink, sketching the glow of a comet's tail, believing that the fate of the empire rested on its meaning. In the Middle East, comets carried both dread and reverence. The Babylonians, masters of celestial omens, saw them as warnings from the gods. To them, the heavens were not random but intentional. Every appearance had significance. A comet streaking over Babylon might have been taken as a divine proclamation, shaping political decisions and religious rituals. In Europe, centuries later, comets appeared in chronicles and illuminated manuscripts. The Bayeux Tapestry, which records the Norman conquest of England in 1066, shows Halley's comet blazing over fearful onlookers. To them, the comet was a harbinger of war, and indeed, great change soon followed. One can almost imagine the peasants of medieval villages pointing upward, whispering prayers, and wondering whether the sky itself had turned against them. Even in the New World, cultures watched the sky with awe. The Maya, whose astronomical knowledge was profound, tracked comets as part of their calendars. To them, these celestial visitors were woven into cycles of time, reflections of the eternal interplay between order and chaos. In their glyphs, comets sometimes appear as fiery serpents, writhing across the heavens, symbols of both creation and destruction. And beyond records and writings, comets have always inspired myth. In Norse tradition, a fiery star could be interpreted as a sign of Ragnarok, the end of the world. In Polynesian stories, they were often seen as flaming spears hurled by gods across the ocean of the sky. For countless peoples, comets were not neutral objects. They carried weight, significance, and mystery. Why do comets inspire such responses? Perhaps it is their unpredictability. Unlike the planets, which move in steady paths, or the stars, which stay fixed, comets burst onto the stage without warning. They grow in brilliance, unfurl their luminous tails, and then fade back into obscurity. They behave like visitors, not residents. And to ancient minds, visitors from the heavens must have been messengers of something profound. Now imagine the comet 3I divided by Atlas, blazing across the sky of an ancient world. Suppose it had passed near Earth centuries ago, before telescopes, before orbital mechanics. How would people have seen it? Would they have declared it a divine judgment? Would kings have trembled in their palaces, and priests have rushed to perform sacrifices? Perhaps whole civilizations would have shifted course under its influence. Such is the power of mystery when wrapped in fire and light. Even today, when science explains comets as frozen relics of star systems, their imagery endures. We still use words like omen, harbinger, and messenger. Films and novels turn them into symbols of fate, disaster, or change. There is a poetry in their dual nature. Comets are both fragile and immense, fleeting yet ancient. They are pieces of ice that crumble in sunlight, and yet they have traveled for billions of years across the gulfs of space. Think of them as metaphors. A comet is a reminder that not everything in life is predictable. Just when we believe the world is steady, something unexpected can blaze across our horizon, altering the story. For our ancestors, that unpredictability was terrifying. For us, perhaps it can be beautiful. As you drift deeper into relaxation tonight, let yourself picture an ancient sky. Farmers in a field stop their work. Priests gather in temples. Children tug at their mothers' robes, pointing upward in awe. A comet glows above them, silent and indifferent, while down below, hearts race and destinies are imagined. That same sense of wonder lives on in us, even now, as we gaze through telescopes instead of naked eyes. And so, 3I divided by Atlas is not just a comet to study. It is a continuation of a human story that stretches back thousands of years, a story of fear, fascination, and meaning projected onto the sky. The comet is both real and symbolic, both data and dream. It carries within it not only the dust of another star system, but also the echoes of all those who once looked upward and saw in its glow the hand of fate. As you listen, let that thought settle. Comets are not just icy rocks. They are living metaphors in the theater of the night. They remind us that the universe has always been more than facts. It has been stories, and we are the storytellers. For thousands of years, comets were woven into myths of terror and transformation. They were omens of war, disease, and dynasties collapsing. But slowly, across centuries, the human gaze shifted. Fear began to give way to curiosity. What once seemed supernatural became something that could be measured, charted, explained. The turning point was not a single discovery, but a gradual dawn, an awakening in which science began to reclaim the sky from superstition. Picture Europe in the late 16th century. The night air is cold, and above, a comet stretches across the heavens. The Danish nobleman Tycho Brahe stands at his observatory, not with trembling prayers, but with instruments in hand. He carefully records the position of the comet of 1,577 night after night. Unlike his ancestors, he does not see a fiery omen, but a puzzle. Through meticulous observation, Tycho discovers that the comet must be farther away than the moon. It cannot be a passing flame in the atmosphere, as Aristotle had claimed centuries before. Instead, it is part of the celestial realm itself. With this realization, one of the oldest fears begins to crumble. From there, the story of science accelerates. In the 17th century, Johannes Kepler, studying the orbits of planets, suggested that comets were traveling in straight lines, cutting across the solar system. Later, Isaac Newton, with his law of universal gravitation, explained that comets followed predictable paths under the pull of the sunday. What had once seemed chaotic and terrifying now revealed patterns, logic, and elegance. And then came Edmund Halley, who in 1705 used Newton's mathematics to calculate that the comet seen in 1682 would return. When it did, right on schedule, the world witnessed something extraordinary: prophecy, not from priests or astrologers, but from science. Halley's comet, once a herald of doom, became a herald of knowledge. Humanity had learned to predict the unpredictable. Still, fear did not vanish overnight. When Halley's comet returned in 1910, newspapers carried alarming reports. Some claimed that Earth would pass through its toxic tail, filling the atmosphere with cyanogen gas. Panic spread. People bought gas masks, and entrepreneurs sold comet pills as protection. Yet, when the Earth passed safely and uneventfully, fear gave way once again to relief, laughter, and renewed trust in science. Slowly, the hold of superstition loosened. In this way, comets became not threats, but treasures. Astronomers saw them as frozen time capsules, relics of the solar system's birth. They were no longer symbols of divine wrath, but archives of cosmic history. Each comet that appeared was another chance to study the early ingredients of planets, the raw chemistry that once gave rise to Earth itself. Now imagine the parallel. Where once a medieval peasant trembled at the sight of a comet, today a graduate student in an observatory might smile her hands trembling not with fear, but with excitement as she collects data. A fiery omen has become an invitation to learn. The same glow that terrified emperors now guides scientists to deeper truths. Yet even as science replaced fear, the poetry of comets remained. Astronomers themselves often describe them in metaphors that echo the myths of old. They call them ghosts of creation, messengers from the deep, snowballs of eternity. The language of awe never truly vanished, it simply evolved. Humanity shifted from fearing comets to revering them, not as punishments but as reminders of our connection to the cosmos. Consider again 3I divided by Atlas. If it had appeared 1,000 years ago, it might have been seen as a sign of the end of kings, a warning from the gods. But today, we know better. We can calculate its orbit, track its speed, measure its spectrum. We can say with confidence that it poses no threat, that it is merely passing through. And yet, even with all our knowledge, the sight of such a visitor still stirs something ancient in us. Science explains, imagination interprets. There is something soothing in this evolution. Fear has its place, it awakens, it alerts. But knowledge transforms fear into wonder. The comet that once made us hide now draws us out into the night with telescopes, cameras, and curiosity. Humanity's story with comets mirrors our larger journey, from trembling in the dark to reaching out with light. And perhaps that is why comets continue to matter. They remind us of how far we have come. They show us that the universe, once thought to be ruled by capricious gods, is instead ruled by patterns, laws, and beauty we can uncover. They also remind us that there is more to learn, more mysteries waiting in the dark. Science does not end wonder, it deepens it. So as you let your breath slow, picture that transition across centuries, from fearful villagers whispering under the glow of Halley's comet to modern astronomers calmly charting Atlas in 2020. From omens of doom to symbols of discovery. From fear to understanding. This is humanity's gift to itself, the ability to look upward and, instead of trembling, to begin asking questions. And as you drift deeper into rest, remember that knowledge is itself a kind of light, a lantern held against the vast dark of the cosmos. Comets once frightened us because they seemed unpredictable. Now, their unpredictability only makes them more fascinating. Like dreams, they arrive without warning, leave without explanation, but always carry a spark of mystery that lingers. The fear has not vanished completely. It never will. But it has been softened, reshaped, turned into curiosity. And in that shift lies one of the quiet triumphs of human history. When astronomers first notice a faint smudge of light in the sky, their work begins not with grand conclusions, but with patient, careful measurement. Every comet is, at first, nothing more than a set of coordinates where it was last night, where it is tonight, and where it might be tomorrow. From these tiny shifts across the canvas of the stars, the story of its path slowly emerges. With 3I divided by Atlas, that story was unlike almost anything they had seen before. Most comets trace ellipses, looping around the sun as though tethered by an invisible string. Some return every few years, some every centuries, but all remain bound to the gravity of our star. Atlas, however, was different. The numbers showed that its path was not an ellipse, but a hyperbola, a curve that bends outward, never closing in on itself. This meant that 3I divided by Atlas was not a resident of our solar system. It had wandered in from beyond, and once it passed, it would never return. Imagine sketching on paper. You draw a circle, this is the orbit of a planet. You draw an oval. Stretched long, this is the orbit of a comet like Halley's. Now, take your pencil and draw a curve that never turns back, that stretches out toward the edge of the page and beyond. That is the orbit of 3, I divided by Atlas, a line that comes in, brushes close to our Sun, and then disappears into the dark once more. The measurements began in 2020, when the Atlas survey first caught sight of the comet. Night after night, astronomers tracked its movement against the background stars. Sophisticated software modeled its trajectory, recalculating with each new observation. Soon the pattern became undeniable. This was no ordinary comet. It was on an interstellar path, joining the tiny family of objects, ʻOumuamua and Borisov, that had proven the galaxy sometimes sends its debris our way. But it wasn't just the shape of the orbit that intrigued scientists. It was the speed, 2-3. I divided by Atlas was racing through space faster than any object bound to the Sun could travel. Its velocity confirmed that it was not caught in our star's gravity well. Instead, it was simply passing by, like a traveler glimpsed from the window of a moving train. By the time Earth had fully noticed it, the comet was already well on its way, moving too quickly to ever be captured. Numbers may seem cold, but here they tell a poetic tale. Each equation is a line of verse describing distance, speed, and direction. Astronomers talk of perihelion, the closest approach to the Sunday. They measure eccentricity, inclination, and semi-major axes, words that sound technical, but all they mean is this: the universe writes its poetry in curves and angles, and by tracing them, we can understand the stories of its wanderers. For Atlas, the perihelion was close enough that it brightened, revealing its fragile tail. But its inclination, the tilt of its orbit compared to the planets, was steep, a sharp reminder that it had not grown up in our orderly solar family. Imagine a ballroom where the planets waltz in near-perfect alignment, all moving in the same direction, keeping time with the Sun's music. Then, suddenly, a stranger storms through, moving at a wild angle, cutting across the dance floor. That was Atlas, a dancer from another hall entirely. These measurements are more than just numbers for scientists. They are safeguards. By knowing the exact orbit, astronomers can answer the most pressing question: could it ever come close to Earth? With 3, I divided by Atlas, the answer was no. Its trajectory would take it safely past, a brief apparition rather than a threat. But even this, reassurance, carried a weight. For if one interstellar object could pass by without warning, then another, someday, might pass closer. The act of measuring orbits is itself a testament to human patience. Imagine an astronomer at her desk, night after night, marking tiny shifts in position, plotting them on charts, feeding them into equations. Imagine the quiet hum of computers as they simulate millions of possible paths, each refined by new data. This is not dramatic work. It is slow, meticulous, almost meditative. And yet, from this patience, truth emerges. In a way, measuring the orbit of 3, I divided by Atlas, is like listening to music. Each data point is a note, and when enough notes are gathered, a melody appears. At first, it seems chaotic, but slowly, the rhythm of the orbit reveals itself, and suddenly, the universe's song becomes clear. The orbit also carries clues about the comet's origin. Its steep angle and high speed suggest it was likely expelled from another star system, perhaps billions of years ago. Imagine a young star, still surrounded by a disk of dust and gas, where planets are forming in a crowded, chaotic nursery. Some objects are pulled inward, becoming moons or asteroids. Others are flung outward, cast into interstellar exile. Atlas may have been one of these exiles, wandering ever since until fate carried it across our sky. For philosophers and poets, there is meaning in this. The orbit of 3, I divided by Atlas, reminds us that not all paths are closed loops. Some lives, some stories, are linear journeys passing through, leaving traces, but never circling back. For us, The comet is here only once, a fleeting encounter in the long timeline of the cosmos. And so, as you drift deeper into rest, let the image settle in your mind, a curve traced across the heavens, sharp and fleeting, like a signature scrawled by the universe itself. 3. I, divided by Atlas, came. It shone faintly in our telescopes, and it will be gone, perhaps never to be seen again by human eyes. But for this brief moment, we are witnesses. We measure, we record, we remember. Knowledge, after all, is a way of holding on to what cannot be held. The orbit of 3I divided by Atlas will carry it away forever, but the numbers remain, etched into our records, proof that we shared this crossing. For all the reassurance that 3I divided by Atlas posed no danger, the human mind cannot resist wandering into the land of what if. It is part of our nature, curiosity mixed with unease, a fascination with disaster as much as with wonder. Tonight, let us gently explore that territory, not to alarm, but to imagine and to understand what the worst case could look like if an object like 3I divided by Atlas ever crossed our path more closely. Imagine the night sky, calm and familiar. Stars sparkle, the moon glows, and all seems as it should be. Then, over the course of weeks, a new light grows brighter. At first, it is subtle, a faint smudge mistaken for a star. But night after night, it swells, sprouting a tail like a glowing ribbon unraveling across the heavens. The world takes notice. Telescopes confirm what the naked eye already suspects. A comet is approaching, and it is not on a safe trajectory. Scientists would begin their calculations. Orbital models would be drawn, red lines crossing Earth's orbit. New data would refine the path, but the numbers would not lie. In months, perhaps years, impact would be inevitable. Governments would meet behind closed doors. News anchors would speak with measured calm. Ordinary people would look upward, wondering how something so beautiful could also be so dangerous. What would happen if a comet the size of 3I divided by Atlas collided with Earth? The answer depends on its mass, speed, and angle of entry. Even a small fragment, only a kilometer across, could release energy equal to millions of nuclear bombs. The Chicxulub impact, which helped end the age of dinosaurs 66 million years ago, came from an object estimated at around 10 kilometers wide. It released enough force to darken the sky, ignite global fires, and change the climate for centuries. Now picture such a force in our own age. The seas would rise in walls of water if the comet struck the ocean. A land impact would create a crater miles wide, shockwaves flattening cities hundreds of miles away. Dust would rise into the stratosphere, blocking sunlight, plunging the world into a sudden winter. Crops would fail, ecosystems would falter. Humanity would face its most fragile truth. Our civilization depends on a delicate balance of climate and stability, and a single comet could undo it. It is sobering, but there is also perspective here. Impacts of such magnitude are extremely rare, so rare that they occur only once every tens of millions of years. The Earth is scarred by craters, but most date back to prehistory, long before human eyes ever looked upward. Still, the scars remind us that the universe does not bend to our schedules. Speculative scenarios grow darker when we add imagination. What if the comet were larger, 100 kilometers across? The Earth might not survive such a blow. What if its composition included volatile chemicals that ignited in the atmosphere, painting the sky with fire before the ground even shook? What if its angle caused it to skip across the atmosphere, scattering fragments across continents, multiple impacts in a single night? And yet, let us not dwell only on destruction. Imagine the comet as seen from space in its final approach. From orbit, Earth would glow blue and white, serene and fragile. The comet, trailing a luminous tail, would hurtle forward, a streak of light against the black. It would be a meeting of two worlds, a collision of histories. One world born in a distant star system, wandering for billions of years. The other teeming with life, civilizations, and dreams. Their encounter would be violent, yes, but also profound. Some science fiction writers imagine humanity preparing in advance. Giant rockets are launched. Nuclear warheads detonated near the comet's core to alter its path. Fleets of spacecraft surround it, pushing gently with solar sails or gravity tractors. Humanity unites for the first time in its history, not against each other, but against the indifferent universe. In these stories, the comet becomes not a destroyer, but a catalyst, a reason for us to discover our collective strength. Perhaps that is why worst-case scenarios draw us in. They force us to confront our vulnerability, but they also ignite our creativity. They remind us that while we cannot control the universe, we can control our response to it. Even in the face of impossible odds, humans dream of solutions. We tell stories of survival, of last-minute rescues, of defiance against the dark. 3. I divided by Atlas itself will never strike us, but its existence opens the door to these reflections. It is a safe rehearsal, a cosmic drill. By imagining the worst, we prepare ourselves for the day when something less forgiving may come. Science fiction becomes science planning. Fear becomes strategy. And slowly, we build resilience. As you listen, let the fear soften into perspective. The stars above you tonight are steady. The comets that wander near us are watched by telescopes around the globe. Space agencies have tested methods of deflection. The odds of catastrophe in our lifetimes remain vanishingly small. But the exercise of imagination is still valuable. It is how humanity grows, not by ignoring danger, but by dreaming of how to meet it. So rest now, knowing that while comets carry the potential for destruction, they also carry beauty, mystery, and meaning. Their tails blaze like cosmic brushstrokes, painting the night not only with danger, but with wonder. And perhaps the true lesson of worst-case scenarios is this: fragility does not make us weak. Fragility makes us precious. Every day we survive on this blue planet is a miracle, balanced on the thin edge of cosmic chance. Let that thought cradle you as you drift further into sleep. The comets will keep traveling, their paths long and lonely. We will keep watching, measuring, preparing. And in between, we will keep dreaming, turning fear into stories, and stories into light. When we imagine a comet or asteroid striking Earth, it may feel like pure science fiction, an overblown scene from a disaster film. Yet, the truth is written across the face of our planet. Earth carries scars, some faint, some immense, each one a reminder that cosmic collisions are not imaginary, they are part of our deep history. The story of comets and meteors is not just about the sky, it is also about the ground we walk on. One of the most famous scars lies on the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico. Beneath layers of jungle and limestone sits the Chicxulub crater, over 90 miles wide, created about 66 million years ago. The impactor was a rock or comet fragment, roughly 10 kilometers across, tiny compared to Earth, yet devastating beyond measure. The explosion released energy equivalent to billions of atomic bombs. The blast ignited forests across continents, sent towering tsunamis racing across oceans, and filled the atmosphere with dust and sulfur. Within weeks, sunlight dimmed. Within months, global temperatures plummeted, ecosystems collapsed, and with them, the reign of the dinosaurs ended. It is sobering to realize that this single impact opened the door for mammals and eventually humans to thrive. Without that comet or asteroid, perhaps we would not be here at all. In a way, our existence is tied to a moment of destruction. The end of one world made space for another to rise. But Chicxulub is not the only reminder. In 1908, in a remote region of Siberia, the sky exploded. A fireball, later believed to be a small comet or asteroid fragment, tore through the atmosphere above the Tunguska River. The object never struck the ground. It disintegrated in an airburst, but the force was extraordinary. Trees were flattened across 800 square miles, their trunks scorched, pointing outward like matchsticks after a flame. Eyewitnesses described the sky glowing, shock waves rattling the ground, a night so bright you could read newspapers hundreds of miles away. Imagine being a reindeer herder that day, looking up to see the heavens split open with light, hearing thunder without clouds, feeling heat from a source you could not see. Tunguska was not a global catastrophe, but if the object had arrived a few hours later, it might have destroyed St. Petersburg. History, once again, balanced on chance. More recently, in 2013, another reminder came in the form of the Chelyabinsk meteor. Over Russia once again, a meteor about 20 meters wide entered the atmosphere at immense speed. It too exploded in an airburst, releasing energy far greater than the bombs that leveled Hiroshima. The shock wave shattered windows across 6 cities, injuring over 1,500 people. Dashcam footage captured the streak of light so bright it rivaled the sun before it detonated. It was a chilling reminder that even smaller cosmic visitors can disrupt human life in an instant. And the Earth holds still more scars, some ancient, some hidden. The Barringer crater in Arizona, a mile wide and 600 feet deep, was created by an iron meteorite about 50,000 years ago. In South Africa, the Vredefort crater, more than 180 miles across, marks the site of an impact over 2 billion years ago, one of the largest known on Earth. Across the globe, from Canada to Australia, craters silently tell the story of a planet shaped by collision as much as by volcano or earthquake. Even the Moon, Earth's closest companion, bears testimony. Look at it through a telescope, or even with your naked eyes, and you see countless craters, frozen scars of impacts that Earth itself must have endured. Our atmosphere and oceans have softened our wounds, erasing many signs, but the Moon remembers. Its face is a mirror of what our own planet once looked like. The lesson in all these events is simple but profound. Impacts happen. They are rare on human timescales, but on cosmic timescales they are inevitable. Earth is not a sealed fortress. It drifts through a cosmic shooting gallery, and every so often, a rock or an icy body finds its mark. Yet there is comfort too. Humanity is the first species to not only fear the sky, but to measure it, to anticipate it. Dinosaurs had no warning when Chicxulub struck. The Tunguska reindeer herders had no chance to prepare. But today, telescopes track thousands of near-Earth objects. Space agencies test deflection methods, like NASA's DART mission, which in 2022 successfully nudged a small asteroid's orbit. For the first time, we are not just witnesses, we are participants in our planet's defense. Speculative scenarios push us further. What if a comet like 3I divided by Atlas were discovered on a collision path decades in advance? Could humanity build fleets of spacecraft to intercept it? Could nuclear devices, solar sails, or even redirected asteroids serve as shields? Science fiction has long explored these questions, but now they inch closer to reality. The worst-case scenario is no longer an unspeakable fear, but a problem to be solved, a challenge that unites rather than divides. And still, there is poetry in these scars. Each crater is both a wound and a story. They remind us of fragility, but also of resilience. Life has survived every impact so far, adapting, reshaping, finding ways to thrive. Perhaps that is Earth's greatest secret, not invincibility, but persistence. As you drift into rest, let your imagination walk across one of those ancient craters. The air is still, the sky wide. You stand at the rim of a vast circle carved into stone, a reminder that the universe is not always gentle. Yet the crater is filled with flowers, with lakes, with forests that have grown since the fire. Out of destruction, life has returned. Out of endings, beginnings have bloomed. So, too, with comets. They may strike, they may shatter, but they also deliver. Scientists believe comets may have carried water to the early Earth, seeding our oceans. They may have brought organic molecules, the precursors of life itself. Destruction and creation, two faces of the same coin, carried on icy messengers from the stars. The history of impacts is a history of change, and perhaps, as you close your eyes tonight, you can see it not as a threat, but as part of the universe's rhythm, a slow, unpredictable drumbeat that reminds us how small we are and how precious each moment truly is. For most of human history, comets caught us by surprise. They appeared suddenly, blazing across the sky without warning, leaving entire civilizations to wonder what fate they foretold. Today, though, the story is different. Humanity has built eyes that never close, telescopes that scan the heavens every night, searching for faint visitors like 3 divided by Atlas. Where once we relied on chance and superstition, now we rely on technology, mathematics, and a network of vigilant watchers spread across the globe. The modern era of detection begins with wide-field survey telescopes, giant instruments that sweep the sky systematically, taking images of vast regions night after night. Among them is the very system that discovered 3 divided by Atlas, the Asteroid Terrestrial Impact Last Alert System, or ATLAS, based in Hawaii. Its name sounds dramatic, almost cinematic, but its mission is practical: to spot dangerous objects before they spot us. ATLAS can detect asteroids only a few hundred feet wide, giving days or weeks of warning before a possible impact. For larger objects, it can provide months or even years of notice. Imagine 2 small domes perched on volcanic slopes in Hawaii, their instruments quietly rotating as the sky darkens. Inside, cameras with extraordinary sensitivity capture long exposures, recording dots of light invisible to the human eye. Software compares each image with the last. Most dots remain steady, fixed stars unmoving against the cosmic background. But once in a while, a speck shifts, moving just slightly between frames. That shift is the whisper of a visitor. That shift is how a comet like 3 divided by Atlas is found. Beyond Atlas, other surveys add to the net. PanSTARRS, also in Hawaii, continuously maps the heavens, logging thousands of new asteroids. The Catalina Sky Survey in Arizona scans low on the horizon, catching objects others might miss. Across the ocean, in Chile, the Vera Rubin Observatory, soon to begin its legacy survey of space and time, promises to transform our view of the night, capturing the entire southern sky in exquisite detail every few nights. Together, these instruments form a chorus of vigilance, ensuring that fewer and fewer cosmic wanderers slip past unnoticed. But detection is only half the story. Once an object is spotted, tracking begins. Astronomers around the world coordinate, pointing their telescopes to refine the orbit. Data flows to the Minor Planet Center in Cambridge, Massachusetts, the international clearinghouse for observations. There, computers crunch numbers, predicting future paths. Within days of discovery, astronomers can often say with confidence whether an object is harmless or whether its orbit crosses uncomfortably close to Earth. For 3 divided by Atlas, these calculations revealed its hyperbolic trajectory, confirming it as interstellar. But consider the alternative. If the numbers had shown even a small chance of collision, alerts would have gone out across governments and space agencies. Strategies would have been discussed. News would have spread. The entire world would have looked upward together. To prevent panic and maintain accuracy, international collaboration is crucial. NASA's Planetary Defense Coordination Office works alongside the European Space Agency's NEO Coordination Center, pooling resources and data. This global watch is humanity's first real planetary shield, not one of rockets or lasers, but of awareness. By knowing what approaches, we gain power over what once terrified us. Technology has even reached beyond Earth. In 2021, NASA launched the DART mission, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test. Its target was Dimorphos, a small asteroid moonlet. In 2022, DART deliberately crashed into Dimorphos, altering its orbit slightly. For the first time in history, humanity nudged a celestial body, proving that with enough time and planning, deflection is possible. Though DART was not aimed at a comet, the principle holds. We are no longer helpless under the sky. We are learning to write our own chapter in the story of impacts. Yet for all this progress, humility remains. Surveys still miss small objects, like the one that exploded over Chelyabinsk in 2013. It arrived undetected, a reminder that vigilance must improve. Some telescopes are limited by daylight, weather, or their position on Earth. The dream is of a complete system. Instruments in orbit around Earth or even around the Sun itself, scanning from all directions, giving humanity years of notice before the next dangerous approach. There is beauty in this vigilance. Imagine the sky as a vast ocean, dark and uncharted. The telescopes are lighthouses, their beams sweeping across invisible waves, catching faint glimmers of ships that pass in the night. Each detection is a lantern lit against the dark, each calculation a map that grows more complete. For 3, I divided by Atlas. The map told us we were safe. Its path was steep, fast, and destined to exit forever. But the very fact that we could know that we could transform fear into certainty, is a triumph. The comet was not just a mystery, it was also a test. Our technology saw it, our mathematics explained it, and our collective vigilance ensured we understood it. Still, imagination persists. What if the next interstellar object does not fly harmlessly by? What if it is larger, faster, or aimed directly at us? These questions keep astronomers awake at night, not with fear, but with determination. Each detection, each calculation, brings us closer to readiness. In a way, every comet or asteroid is both a teacher and a rehearsal. As you lie back tonight, think of those silent observatories, domes turning slowly as they track the sky. Think of astronomers sipping coffee in the early hours, adjusting coordinates, their faces lit by glowing monitors. Think of software scanning pixel by pixel, catching a moving speck that no human eye could see. All of this unfolds quietly, while cities sleep, while oceans breathe, while the planet turns beneath. Humanity is, at last, keeping watch. And perhaps that is the truest comfort. We cannot stop the universe from sending wanderers like 3I divided by Atlas, but we can see them, we can understand them, and in that understanding lies peace. The fear of the unknown has always been the greatest fear. Now, little by little, we are making the unknown known. So far, our journey has been one of safe distance. We have watched 3I divided by Atlas, as it slipped through our solar system, measured its orbit, studied its light, and confirmed that it would pass harmlessly by. But the imagination, restless as ever, whispers another question. What if it had come closer? What if this interstellar visitor, instead of sailing safely past, had brushed near our world, close enough to change not just telescopes but lives? Let us drift into that thought gently, like slipping into a dream. Picture a night, not unlike tonight. You step outside and glance upward. At first, you think nothing of it. But then your eyes catch something unusual. A pale smudge lingers near the horizon. Over the following nights, it grows brighter, more distinct. Soon, it stretches a tail across half the sky, a banner of light so striking that even the most distracted among us pause to stare. The news spreads quickly. Scientists confirm that the visitor is 326, I divided by Atlas, but its orbit, for reasons unknown, is different from what we expected. Instead of a safe trajectory, its path now carries it close, perhaps dangerously close. The world watches as numbers shift day by day. For the first time in centuries, humanity's gaze unites on a single point in the heavens. What would we see if Atlas came near? To the naked eye, it would be breathtaking. Comets that pass close to Earth sometimes grow so bright that they cast shadows at night, illuminating the landscape with a ghostly glow. Imagine walking under such a sky, where the comet's tail paints luminous stripes across the darkness, shimmering with blues, greens, and golds. Rivers reflect its glow, mountains catch its light, and entire cities are bathed in its radiance. It would be beautiful, yes, but also haunting. And with beauty would come unease. Scientists would calculate probabilities of impact. News anchors would speak of close approaches, their voices measured but tense. Governments would meet, contingency plans whispered in hallways. Ordinary people would look at the glowing trail and feel the contradiction. How can something so lovely carry the weight of potential doom? If Atlas were to pass within millions of miles close in cosmic terms, though still far by human standards, it could ignite fears of gravitational effects. Some would worry about tides, earthquakes, or atmospheric shifts. In truth, the Earth is resilient. Such effects would be minimal. But fear thrives in uncertainty, and rumors would ripple across societies like waves. Suppose, in a darker scenario, the comet's path tilted just enough that impact became possible. Even a small fragment of 3I divided by Atlas could alter history. Entire industries would mobilize. Telescopes would track every fragment, every outburst of gas, every shift in its brightness that might signal instability. Space agencies would scramble to design missions, perhaps launching kinetic impactors or nuclear devices to deflect its course. Humanity's ingenuity would be tested in a race against time. From the ground, however, the experience would be surreal. Nights would be dominated by the comet's light. Children would draw its tail in chalk on sidewalks. Poets would compare it to a heavenly river, a scar across the sky, a reminder that our place in the cosmos is never guaranteed. And as the date of closest approach drew near, anxiety would rise like a tide. But let us soften that vision. Let us imagine not a strike, but a near miss close enough to stir hearts, far enough to leave us unharmed. The day would come when Atlas swept nearest, glowing brighter than Venus, perhaps even visible in daylight. People would gather on rooftops, in fields, along coastlines, watching together. For once, humanity's divisions might blur, replaced by a shared awe. Cameras would capture every shimmer of its tail, every shift of color. The internet would be flooded with images of a sky transformed. And then, slowly, it would fade. The days would pass, the tail would grow dim, and Atlas would slip once more into the dark, leaving behind only memory. Relief would wash over the world. Scientists would publish their papers, artists would paint their visions, and ordinary people would tell their grandchildren of the night the sky came alive. There is something profoundly human in this imagining. We cannot resist turning danger into story, threat into reflection. A close approach by Atlas would remind us of fragility, yes, but also of wonder. It would show us that the universe is not static. It moves, it changes, it surprises, and in those surprises, we discover ourselves. So as you relax tonight, let yourself picture that sky. A luminous comet overhead. The air cool, the world hushed. Neighbors step outside, pointing upward. Children laugh, parents grow quiet, and somewhere a poet whispers lines that will live for centuries. The comet glows, indifferent to our fears and hopes, yet uniting us all in its passing. In truth, 3I divided by Atlas did not come close. It passed safely, a distant visitor glimpsed only through telescopes. But imagining the alternative allows us to understand both our fear and our gratitude. We are reminded of what could be, and by contrast, we are comforted by what is. The night remains calm, the earth remains whole, and the comet continues its silent voyage into the endless dark. Whenever the possibility of a comet or asteroid striking Earth is raised, one question quickly follows. What could we do about it? Are we helpless beneath the vast sky, waiting for fate to decide? Or can we take our survival into our own hands? This is the heart of planetary defense, a field that has grown from imagination and fear into science, engineering, and international cooperation. The truth is that for most of history, humanity had no defenses at all. A comet blazing across the heavens was met with prayers, rituals, or resigned awe. Even as recently as a century ago, if astronomers had discovered a comet on a collision course, there would have been little to do but prepare for impact. But today, things are different. Our species has launched machines to the Moon, to Mars, to distant gas giants, and even beyond the edge of the solar system. We have reached comets before, not to destroy them, but to study them. And in doing so, we have begun to realize that defense may be possible after all. Consider NASA's DART mission, the Double Asteroid Redirection Test. In September 2022, a spacecraft the size of a vending machine hurled itself into an asteroid moonlet named Dimorphos. The impact was intentional, a controlled collision to see if we could nudge an object's orbit. The result was a success. For the first time, humanity demonstrated that it could alter the path of a celestial body. Though Dimorphos was not a threat, the principle was proven. If we can move a small asteroid today, perhaps we can move a larger one tomorrow. Other ideas abound. Some scientists suggest using nuclear devices, not to shatter an asteroid into dangerous fragments, but to explode near its surface, vaporizing material that would act like a rocket thrust, pushing it gently off course. Others imagine gravity tractors, spacecraft hovering near an asteroid, using their own mass to tug it subtly over years. Still others envision coating the surface of a comet with reflective materials, altering how sunlight warms it, slowly shifting its orbit through the pressure of photons. Each method carries risks and challenges, but together they form a toolkit of possibilities. Yet planetary defense is not only about technology, it is about time. The key is early detection. The sooner we know an object is coming, the more options we have. A comet discovered decades before impact could be nudged aside with relative ease, but one found only months before would leave us nearly powerless. In this way, the work of telescopes, survey systems, and vigilant astronomers becomes our first and greatest shield. Imagine humanity facing such a threat. Nations would set aside differences, scientists would collaborate across languages and borders, engineers would race against the clock, spacecraft would launch, not as weapons of war, but as guardians of Earth. For the first time, all of civilization might focus on a single shared goal: survival. In a sense, planetary defense is not only science fiction made real, it is also a vision of unity, a chance to discover who we are when faced with the vastness of the universe. But planetary defense is also humility. For all our progress, we must acknowledge limits. Large objects can be deflected with planning, but smaller ones, the kind that caused Tunguska or Chelyabinsk, are harder to catch. Our detection systems are not perfect. Clouds, daylight, and sheer numbers mean that some threats may slip past unseen. Even as we celebrate success, we must accept that vigilance must be constant and investment must be sustained. Still, there is comfort in knowing that we are no longer passive. We are no longer at the mercy of every wandering rock or icy fragment. We are, at last, learning to stand guard. And perhaps this is the deeper meaning of planetary defense. It is not about eliminating all risk, but about transforming fear into preparation, anxiety into action. Picture the future. Decades from now, a comet larger than 3, I divided by Atlas, is spotted with a faint chance of impact. The news spreads quickly, but instead of panic, there is resolve. Engineers assemble spacecraft designed to intercept it. Artists imagine what the mission patch will look like. Children learn about the effort in classrooms, their drawings filled with rockets nudging a glowing comet off course. And somewhere, late at night, telescopes confirm the plan is working. The comet drifts slightly, its path bending, and Earth is safe. Even if that day never comes, the vision itself is powerful. It tells us that we are capable of shaping our destiny, even against forces that once seemed untouchable. It reminds us that knowledge is power, and cooperation is strength. It shows us that fragility does not mean helplessness. So as you rest tonight, think of planetary defense not as a grim shield, but as a quiet promise. A promise that humanity will keep watch, will prepare, will strive to protect the fragile blue world we call home. The comets will keep traveling, the asteroids will keep drifting, but we will not face them blind. We will face them with eyes open, with minds alert, and with hearts determined. And perhaps that is enough to let the fear melt away. For in the vastness of the cosmos, we are small, but we are not powerless. We are dreamers who became builders, storytellers who became guardians. And though we cannot predict every visitor, we can prepare to greet them, not with panic, but with readiness. When we gaze at the night sky, we often search for facts, measurements, distances, chemical compositions. Yet sometimes, objects like 3I divided by Atlas invite us to ask questions that stretch beyond science, questions that reach into the heart of philosophy. What does it mean for something born under another star to pass so close to us? What does it reveal about our place in the cosmos, about the meaning of time, and about the fragile thread of existence itself? For philosophers of old, the heavens were mirrors of the soul. The Greeks saw the stars as fixed, eternal, perfect spheres, while life on Earth was chaotic and fleeting. But comets disrupted that picture. They were unruly, unpredictable, a reminder that even the sky was not immune to change. In this sense, 3I divided by Atlas continues a very ancient tradition. It is a messenger of impermanence. In Buddhist thought, impermanence anicca is the essence of reality. Everything arises, changes, and fades. To see a comet like Atlas is to witness that truth written in light. It arrives suddenly, burns brightly, and then vanishes into the dark, never to return. In a way, comets are meditations in motion, reminding us that all things, from stars to civilizations to our own lives, are part of a flow that cannot be held. From the perspective of Stoic philosophy, too, comets carry meaning. The Stoics taught that we should not fear what lies beyond our control. The path of a comet is exactly such a thing: vast, unstoppable, indifferent. Its trajectory reminds us that there are forces in the universe far beyond human influence. Yet instead of despairing, the Stoics would have urged us to find peace in this knowledge, to align ourselves with the rhythm of the cosmos. 3I divided by Atlas, then, is not a threat, but a teacher, showing us humility. And what of time? Astronomers estimate that 3I divided by Atlas may have traveled for millions or even billions of years before reaching our solar system. Think of that. When it began its journey, continents on Earth were in different places. Dinosaurs may have still walked the land. Our species did not exist, nor did our languages, our stories, our music. The comet is older than our myths, older than our fears. To watch it glide through our sky is to feel the immensity of time pressing gently against our brief lives. Yet in that immensity, there is also connection. If comets travel between stars, carrying dust and ice from one system to another, then the galaxy is not a collection of isolated islands, but a web of exchange. Matter moves, mingles, and seeds new beginnings. The water in your glass tonight may have been delivered by a comet billions of years ago. The carbon in your body may have been forged in a star far away. In this sense, 3I divided by Atlas is not foreign at all. It is family. It reminds us that everything is made of the same cosmic cloth. There is also a quiet lesson in perspective. Human affairs often feel overwhelming. Politics, ambitions, conflicts, deadlines. But when you imagine a comet drifting silently for eons, indifferent to empires rising and falling, something shifts. Our dramas shrink, our anxieties soften. We see that life is precious not because it dominates the universe, but because it blossoms briefly within it. The comet does not care about our struggles, and that is strangely comforting. We are free to live, love, and rest, without pretending that the cosmos revolves around us. Some philosophers have asked, are comets symbols of fate or freedom? Do they represent inevitability, the certainty of cycles and consequences? Or do they symbolize chance, randomness, the unpredictable brush of the infinite? Perhaps they are both. 3I, divided by Atlas, reminds us that the universe holds patterns we can measure, yet also surprises we cannot foresee. In that tension lies the mystery of existence itself. Poets, too, have always felt this pull. They see in comets metaphors for love that blazes and fades, for lives that shine briefly against eternity, for journeys that never return. Perhaps tonight, as you listen, you can think of your own life as a kind of comet. You were born under certain stars, you travel across the sky of time, and one day you will vanish. But along the way, you shine, you touch others, you leave a trail of memory that lingers even after you are gone. So let 3I divided by Atlas be more than a scientific curiosity. Let it be a meditation. When you picture it gliding across the dark, imagine what it says about you, about us, about the human story. We are temporary, yes, but we are also luminous. We burn bright in the brief window we are given, and that brightness is enough. As you breathe deeply and allow your body to sink into rest, hold on to that thought. The comet drifts on, carrying stardust from another Sunday. You drift on, carrying memories, dreams, and love. Both journeys are fleeting. Both are infinite in their own way. And in the silence of the night, beneath the endless vault of stars, both are beautiful. When scientists speak of comets like 3I divided by Atlas, they usually ground their words in data, mass estimates, orbital models, chemical composition. But the human imagination does not stop at facts. It leaps ahead, spins stories, and wonders. What if? And in those what-ifs lies the fertile soil of science fiction. Comets have long served as vessels of speculation, mystical ships, cosmic warnings, or even tools of future civilizations. Tonight, let's allow ourselves to drift into that imaginative space, where 3I divided by Atlas becomes more than a frozen rock. One of the most enduring ideas is that comets might serve as ships. Picture a far future humanity capable of harnessing the resources of the solar system. Spacecraft no longer need to carry their fuel, water, or oxygen from Earth. Instead, they could anchor to a comet, mining its icy reserves to sustain long voyages. A comet becomes not just a traveler, but a home, a wandering ark that can be hollowed out, fitted with habitats, and propelled across the stars. In this vision, 3I divided by Atlas could be imagined as the prototype for such journeys. What if it were already a ship, perhaps not ours, but another civilization's? From afar it looks like a natural object, but inside, tunnels and chambers hum with alien life. Its icy crust is camouflage, its tail a side effect of controlled releases of gas. To imagine such a possibility is not to claim it is true, but to feel the thrill of mystery. The universe is vast. Is it not possible that some travelers hide in plain sight? Another possibility is that comets serve as time capsules. Imagine an advanced civilization, long extinct, encoding their history in the molecules of a comet. They launch it into interstellar space, knowing that someday, somewhere, another species will find it. In this sense, 3I, divided by Atlas, could be carrying messages across billions of years. Not words carved in stone, but chemical signatures, arrangements of isotopes, or patterns of molecules too precise to be natural. A library written in ice. The thought is both haunting and comforting. Perhaps we are not the first to dream of being remembered. Science fiction also imagines comets as weapons. A civilization with technology to steer them could send them crashing into enemy worlds, devastating entire ecosystems. It is a chilling thought. A reminder that the tools of creation are often the tools of destruction. In a speculative tale, 3I divided by Atlas might not be a random visitor at all, but a relic of some ancient war, an unused weapon wandering forever, its purpose forgotten. Yet other stories are gentler. Some writers picture comets as gardeners of the galaxy. They scatter seeds of life as they travel, carrying water and organics to barren worlds. Perhaps this is not even accidental. Perhaps a species, somewhere long ago, decided to turn comets into messengers of life, deliberately planting the raw ingredients of biology wherever they could. If so, then 3I divided by Atlas is not just an interstellar rock, it is a gardener's hand, sowing possibilities across the stars. The idea of panspermia, the spread of life's building blocks through space, has inspired countless tales. Imagine Earth itself as the child of such a story, seeded by a comet billions of years ago. In that case, 3I divided by Atlas is more than a stranger. It is kin, a cousin from across the galaxy, carrying the same ancient DNA alphabet that writes our existence. Science fiction loves to ask not only what comets are, but what they mean to us emotionally. Sometimes they symbolize endings of fiery streak before destruction. Other times they symbolize beginnings, the spark of life arriving from afar. In either role, they are thresholds, points where one story closes and another begins. 3I divided by Atlas, seen through this lens, becomes not just a comet, but a metaphor for transition. Let us also consider comets as time machines, not in the literal sense of traveling backward or forward, but as vessels that preserve ancient matter unchanged. To hold a fragment of a comet in your hand is to touch the past, a piece of chemistry from before Earth even existed. In this sense, 3I divided by Atlas is a time traveler, carrying with it the memory of a star system long gone, a storyteller whispering across billions of years. Speculative scenarios often wander into the mystical as well. What if comets are the eyes of the universe, drifting scouts that observe and record? What if each one is a kind of sensor, moving silently through the dark, feeding information back to some unfathomable source? 3I, divided by Atlas, could be one such scout, gliding past Earth, taking note, moving on. The thought is eerie, yet strangely comforting, as though the cosmos itself is aware of us. And then there is the playful imagination, comets as messengers of dreams. Some cultures believed comets carried the spirits of the departed, lighting the sky as souls passed into eternity. In a science fiction retelling, 3I divided by Atlas might not carry ice or dust at all, but memory-encoded dreams, drifting through space, waiting to be awakened by those who can read them. Why do these ideas matter? Because they stretch us. They remind us that the universe is not only a place of measurements and orbits, but also a canvas for imagination. Science gives us facts, fiction gives us meaning, and sometimes fiction inspires science itself. Rockets were once fantasies in novels. Submarines were once dreams in stories. Perhaps one day, comet ships or interstellar time capsules will move from the page to reality. As you rest tonight, let yourself drift into these possibilities. Picture 3. I divided by Atlas, not just as a comet, but as a ship, a seed, a message, a dream. See it gliding through the stars, silent yet purposeful, carrying with it secrets we cannot yet imagine. The truth may be simple, but the stories are endless. And in the space between truth and story lies wonder, the very thing that keeps us looking up. Every time astronomers confirm that an object like 3I divided by Atlas is interstellar, another doorway opens in our minds. The thought that it comes from somewhere else, a place we cannot see, orbiting a star we may never know, transforms the comet from a fragment of ice into a bridge. It becomes a link between our solar system and another, a tiny traveler carrying whispers from beyond. In this way, Atlas is not just a comet. It is a gateway, a reminder that the stars are not closed worlds, but participants in a greater conversation. Imagine tracing its path backward through time. Millions of years ago, 3I divided by Atlas may have been part of a young star system. Perhaps it circled a sun not unlike ours, in a region filled with icy fragments, dust, and the early stirrings of planets. Then, through the chaotic ballet of gravity, it was flung outward, pushed by the pull of a giant planet, or nudged by the dance of sibling stars. Freed from its parent sun, it became a wanderer. For aeons, it drifted through interstellar space, carrying within it the frozen chemistry of a world we will never see. That chemistry is more than curiosity. To study a comet like Atlas is to hold in our hands material forged under a different set of cosmic conditions. The ratios of elements, the mix of ices, the dust grains, all may carry the fingerprint of a foreign system. If we could capture a fragment, we could compare it with the comets born of our own Oort cloud. What would we find? Would alien comets look the same as ours? Or would they carry unexpected signatures, compounds rare in our system but common in others? This is why scientists dream of missions to intercept such travelers. Imagine a spacecraft racing to meet Atlas as it speeds through. Instruments would sample its gases, analyze its dust, perhaps even capture a piece to bring home. The results would be profound. A direct taste of another solar system, delivered without our having to travel the light years that separate us. Each interstellar comet is like a care package from the galaxy, arriving unannounced on our doorstep. But there is more. Comets like Atlas hint that star systems are not isolated. They exchange material. When planets form, not all fragments are bound. Some are ejected, becoming wanderers. These wanderers may drift for millions of years, but eventually they find themselves pulled into other systems. In this way, the galaxy is a place of exchange. Dust from one sun may fall into the orbit of another. Seeds of water, carbon, and organics may scatter across the stars. Life, if it ever arises, may not be limited to its birthplace. It may spread quietly through vessels like Atlas. Think of the implications. When you look at 3I divided by Atlas, you are not just seeing a comet. You are seeing a fragment of another world, a fragment that may have once been part of a planet's nursery, a moon's crust, or the icy rim of a system we will never map. In it lies proof that the stars are not separate kingdoms, but neighbors in a galactic community. Each interstellar comet that passes is a traveler, and each traveler is a bridge. Speculative minds take the thought further. What if such comets could be deliberately used as bridges? Imagine future explorers harnessing one, turning it into a ship not only fueled by its ice but guided by its trajectory. Instead of building craft from scratch, we might borrow nature's wanderers, steering them toward destinations light years away. A comet becomes both vessel and fuel source, its tail no longer a passive plume, but the sign of propulsion under control. Others imagine them as portals of information. If advanced civilizations exist, could they mark comets like Atlas as carriers? Perhaps encoded isotopes or carefully arranged molecules could act as calling cards, left for any who discover them. In this way, comets would be not only bridges of matter, but bridges of meaning. 3. I divided by Atlas. Then, could be more than ice, it could be message. Even without speculation, the philosophical resonance is powerful. To watch Atlas glide past is to remember that the universe is porous. Stars give birth to fragments. Fragments leave and wander. Wanderers arrive and remind us that we, too, are part of a wider web. Our solar system is not a lonely island. It is a crossroad. Comets like Atlas are the footprints of travelers who came before. As you let your eyes grow heavy, picture the galaxy as a great archipelago of stars, each one with its own planets, its own comets, its own mysteries. Between them, the dark is not empty. It is filled with wanderers, icy messengers drifting slowly, silently across unimaginable gulfs. Atlas is one of these, and in watching it, we glimpse not only our own sky, but the possibility of skies we may never touch. The thought is humbling, but also hopeful. It tells us that the universe is not closed, not sealed. It breathes, it exchanges, it shares. Comets like Atlas are its whispers, reminding us that we are connected, not alone. Each one is a gateway, not a door we can step through yet, but a window we can peer across, catching a fleeting view of distant shores. So rest now, with that image in your mind. 3 I divided by Atlas, as a bridge across the stars, a frozen emissary carrying secrets from one world to another. It is passing, yes, but in passing, it leaves us richer, fuller, more aware of the galaxy we inhabit. And perhaps, one day, we will follow in its path, becoming wanderers ourselves, carrying our own whispers from star to star. So far, we have spoken of 3 I divided by Atlas as a distant visitor, a stranger who drifted safely through our neighborhood and continued on its journey into the deep dark. But the imagination often turns the story sideways. What if it hadn't stayed so distant? What if this interstellar comet brushed near Earth, not in harmless passing, but in a way that made its presence impossible to ignore? Picture the sky as you know it, calm, predictable, with the constellations steady like old friends. Then imagine a night when a new star appears. At first, it is faint, little more than a smudge noticed by a few careful watchers. But night after night, it grows brighter. Soon, even those who never look up cannot help but notice. A glowing streak dominates the heavens, its tail unfurling like a banner of fire and ice. It is 3 I divided by Atlas, and it has come close enough that the whole world can see it with the naked eye. The effect on humanity would be immediate. News outlets would broadcast its progress daily. Social media would flood with images, photographs of glowing tails stretching across city skylines. time-lapse videos of its arc above deserts and oceans. Artists would paint it, poets would write of it, children would draw it in chalk across sidewalks. It would become not only an astronomical event, but a cultural one, woven into every conversation, every glance upward. But alongside awe, there would be unease. Scientists would be pressed for answers. Is it safe? Will it hit us? What does the data say? Orbital models would fill screens on every news channel. Colorful lines showing Earth here, the comet there, the space between narrowing. Even if the models showed no collision, the closeness alone would stir primal nerves. After all, comets are not just lights. They are bodies of ice and rock, moving at tens of thousands of miles per hour. Proximity makes their presence feel heavy, even threatening. Imagine standing in a field during the night of closest approach. The comet hangs above you, so bright that it casts shadows across the ground. The stars seem dim beside it, and the moon looks almost shy. Its tail sweeps across the horizon, shimmering with green and gold, as solar wind excites the gases streaming from its core. You can hear people around you gasp, some whispering prayers, others falling silent. The sight is overwhelming, not only beautiful, but humbling, a reminder of how small our world is in the vast machinery of the cosmos. Suppose, in this imagining, the comet skims even closer, close enough that fragments break away, streaking across the sky as brilliant meteors. They burn in the atmosphere, harmless fireworks from the hand of the universe. Cities cheer, children clap, yet deep down, everyone knows these sparks are reminders of what could be. Each fragment could have been larger, each streak could have been impact, beauty, and danger danced together in the same display. Governments would prepare, even if no collision was predicted. Contingency plans would unfold. Satellites would monitor the comet's every twitch, radar tracking its fragments, simulations running endlessly. The world would live in a state of watchfulness, united by a single glowing thread across the night sky. For once, all eyes would be turned upward. But let us soften this vision, for we are not here to stir fear, but to cradle wonder. Imagine that the comet sweeps past safely, missing Earth by a comfortable distance, yet close enough to paint our memories forever. For months, it dominates the sky, visible at dawn and dusk, a companion to our routines. Lovers walk beneath it, weaving it into their stories. Musicians compose under its glow. Grandparents tell children, I saw the interstellar comet when it came near. I saw Atlas with my own eyes. When at last it fades, the world feels a touch emptier, like waking from a vivid dream. The stars return to their old patterns, reliable but less dramatic. Yet something lingers. Humanity has shared an experience that no border, language, or belief could divide. For once, we were all looking in the same direction. And perhaps this is the truest gift of such an imagining. A close encounter would remind us not only of danger, but of unity. It would remind us that beneath our divisions, we share the same fragile world, the same need for safety, the same capacity for awe. The comet would be a mirror, reflecting not only sunlight but our own humanity back at us. As you drift toward rest, hold on to that image. A glowing streak across the sky, silent yet powerful, uniting billions of hearts beneath one wonder. 3i divided by Atlas did not, in truth, come that close, but in the quiet of imagination, it can. And in imagining, we are reminded that the universe is not just out there, it is also within us, in the way we respond, the way we dream, the way we hold on to wonder long after the comet has gone. Long before telescopes or scientific theories, comets were woven into the fabric of human imagination. They appeared suddenly, without warning, blazing across the heavens with fiery tails, and then vanished just as quickly. To ancient civilizations, this unpredictability gave them power. Comets became symbols, omens, and divine messengers, phenomena that shaped the choices of rulers and the beliefs of entire cultures. Imagine standing in Babylon thousands of years ago. The city is alive with torches and chants, its ziggurats reaching upward toward the stars. Priests climb to the top of the great temples to watch the heavens, clay tablets in hand. Then, one night, a brilliant light appears, stretching a plume across the sky. The scribes scratch frantic symbols, recording its color, its direction, its duration. For the Babylonians, the sky was the script of the gods, and comets were among the most urgent messages. A blazing tail might foretell the fall of a king, the rise of a rival, or the fate of battles yet to be fought. In China, where sky-watching was a matter of state, comets were tracked with astonishing precision. Ancient Chinese astronomers recorded their shapes, sometimes describing them as broom stars, sweeping away dynasties. They categorized them into dozens of types: tailed comets, fuzzy comets, comets that changed color. Each variation carried a meaning, and emperors acted on these interpretations. Imagine an imperial court falling silent as an advisor announced that a comet had been seen. Armies might be mobilized, sacrifices performed, and political decisions altered, all because of a visitor from the heavens. The Greeks, too, pondered comets. Aristotle believed they were atmospheric disturbances, fiery exhalations from the Earth's breath. Others, like Seneca, challenged this view, suggesting that comets might be permanent celestial bodies, their appearances governed by laws not yet understood. His writings carried a prophetic tone. The day will come when time and diligent study will unravel the mysteries of comets. Centuries later, he was proven right. For the Romans, comets carried imperial weight. When Julius Caesar was assassinated in 44 BCE, a comet appeared in the skies over Rome for 7 days. The people declared it a sign of his deification, proof that Caesar's soul had ascended to the heavens. Coins were struck with the image of the comet, reinforcing the belief that leaders lived not only in memory, but also among the stars. Here, the comet became not a threat, but a symbol of glory and immortality. Across the ocean, the Maya and Aztec civilizations also read meaning in comets. To the Maya, comets were tied to cycles of time and transformation. They saw the heavens as a great calendar, each event linked to sacred rhythms. A comet's appearance might signal the end of one era and the birth of another. The Aztecs, with their fierce gods of war and sacrifice, often viewed comets as harbingers of disaster signs that demanded offerings to appease divine wrath. In medieval Europe, comets were feared as signs of plague and war. Chronicles often mention them in connection with calamities. The Bayeux Tapestry, stitched in the 11th century, depicts Halley's comet blazing above fearful onlookers during the Norman conquest of England in 1066. To those who saw it, the comet was not merely a streak of light, but a herald of upheaval. And yet, alongside fear, there was wonder. Some saw comets not as punishments, but as marvels. In Polynesia, stories described comets as flaming spears cast across the heavens by gods, symbols of courage and transformation. In Norse tradition, a comet could be read as a spark of Ragnarök, a reminder that even the sky would one day burn in the cycle of endings and rebirths. What unites all these civilizations is the conviction that comets mattered. They were not background details. They were central to the way people understood the universe. Every culture projected its deepest concerns onto them: the stability of kings, the fate of crops, the rise and fall of empires. Comets became mirrors, reflecting human hopes and fears against the canvas of the cosmos. Now imagine if 3 divided by Atlas had appeared in one of those ancient skies. Suppose it had passed close enough to glow brilliantly above Babylon, or Rome, or Tikal. How many myths would it have inspired? How many wars delayed? How many sacrifices performed? How many poems written? The interstellar nature of the comet would have been unknowable, yet its strangeness, its unusual trajectory, its brilliance might have set it apart as something divine. It would have lived forever in legend, its name etched in myth rather than mathematics. For us today, knowledge tempers fear. We see Atlas as an icy fragment, not an omen. Yet we are not so different from our ancestors. When we stare at photographs of its faint glow, or imagine its journey from another star system, we too feel awe, humility, and the urge to tell stories. Science has replaced prophecy, but the sense of wonder remains the same. As you drift deeper into rest, let yourself picture those ancient nights, priests on temple rooftops, scribes pressing symbols into clay, emperors pacing their palaces, villagers whispering to one another all under the same sky, all staring at a fiery stranger. The comet blazed, then vanished, but the stories endured. And in those stories, we find our connection to every generation that ever looked upward and felt small, yet also felt part of something vast. When people look up at comets, the awe they feel is often shadowed by something deeper, fear. The streak of light is beautiful, yes, but it also awakens an old anxiety buried in the human mind, the possibility of endings. A comet like 3I divided by Atlas, passing from another star system, stirs this anxiety more than most, for it reminds us of the vast forces beyond our control. To understand why comets have so often been linked with catastrophe, we must look not only at history, but at psychology, the way the human brain responds to the prospect of extinction. At the core of this fear is our awareness of fragility. Unlike other animals, we know that life is temporary. We know that civilizations rise and fall, that empires crumble, and that individuals vanish. When a comet appears, especially one blazing and unfamiliar, it becomes a projection screen for this awareness. The mind cannot help but ask, what if this is the end? Psychologists call this the mortality salience effect. When we are reminded of death, even indirectly, our thoughts and behaviors change. We become more anxious, more tribal, more drawn to stories that explain or comfort. In ancient times, comets served as the perfect trigger for mortality salience. They were sudden, inexplicable, overwhelming. They pulled entire societies into a collective awareness of vulnerability. Kings consulted oracles, priests performed sacrifices, and ordinary people whispered prayers. All of it was, in some sense, an attempt to manage the fear of extinction. Even today, in an age of telescopes and orbit models, the same psychology lingers. News of a potential asteroid or comet impact sparks fascination and dread in equal measure. Hollywood has tapped into this countless times, producing films that dramatize humanity's struggle against incoming cosmic threats. These stories resonate because they touch something primal, the fear that all we have built could vanish in an instant. Yet psychology also reveals a paradox. While fear of extinction unsettles us, it also draws us together. Shared threats can unify societies in ways that ordinary life cannot. Studies show that when people are reminded of existential risks, they often seek connection, cooperation, and meaning. We see this in speculation about planetary defense. Comets like 3I divided by Atlas become symbols of the challenges that might force humanity to act as one. The fear of endings creates the possibility of unity. There is another layer too, fascination. Humans are strangely attracted to imagining their own extinction. This is why worst-case scenarios are compelling. They are not only warnings but also stories, narratives in which we place ourselves, imagining how we would act, how we would survive, how we would find meaning in the face of doom. Comets, with their drama and mystery, are perfect vessels for this storytelling instinct. 3I divided by Atlas, safe though it may be, becomes in imagination the trigger of catastrophe, allowing us to practice emotions we hope never to face. Philosophers have long reflected on this duality of fear and fascination. The German philosopher Martin Heidegger wrote of being toward death, the idea that human life is defined by the awareness of its end. Comets in the sky are reminders of this reality, scaled up to a cosmic dimension. They confront us not only with personal mortality, but with the possibility of species-wide mortality, the end of everything we know. But here is the quiet irony. Fear of extinction also makes life more precious. To imagine it all ending is to feel, more keenly, the value of what we have now. A comet streaking across the heavens can terrify us, but it can also inspire gratitude. We look at our loved ones differently. We savor the present more deeply because we are reminded how fragile it all is. In this way, 3I divided by Atlas is not only a spark of fear, but also a spark of appreciation. It teaches us that fragility is not weakness. It is what makes existence meaningful. If life were permanent and unshakable, it might lose its wonder. The comet's passage reminds us that everything is temporary, and therefore everything matters. Imagine lying beneath the night sky as Atlas glows faintly above. You feel the old anxiety stirring the recognition that Earth is small, that we are vulnerable. But then you notice the steadiness of the stars, the rhythm of your own breath, the warmth of someone beside you. Suddenly, the fear softens. You realize that even if the universe is indifferent, you are not. You care, you love, you hope. And that, perhaps, is enough. Throughout history, comets have been feared as omens of destruction. But maybe their deeper role is psychological. They remind us of extinction so that we may appreciate existence. They confront us with the possibility of endings so that we may live our stories more fully. And though 3I divided by Atlas will pass safely, it still serves this role. It awakens our minds, makes us reflect, and then leaves us richer for having asked the hard questions. As you sink into rest tonight, let the comet become a metaphor for your own fears. Acknowledge them, honor them, but do not let them dominate you. Like Atlas, fears pass. What remains is the life you live, the love you share, and the quiet miracle of being here at all. Whenever something unusual drifts into our solar system, human imagination stretches far beyond science. 3I divided by Atlas, like its predecessors, ʻOumuamua and Borisov, has inspired not only careful measurements, but also wild speculation. For some, it is not enough to call it a fragment of ice and rock. They wonder, what if it is more? What if interstellar objects are not random wanderers, but signs of intelligence, technology, or deliberate design? These are extreme theories, yes, but they reveal the depth of our longing to know if we are alone. The most famous case came with ʻOumuamua in 2017. Its elongated, cigar-like shape, unusual acceleration, and lack of a visible tail led some scientists, most notably Harvard astronomer Avi Loeb, to suggest it might be artificial, perhaps a probe or fragment of alien technology. His proposal sparked controversy, dividing the astronomical community. Many dismissed the idea as unnecessary speculation, arguing that natural explanations sufficed. But the fact that such a respected scientist entertained the possibility gave new life to the conversation about extraterrestrial intelligence. So when 3I divided by Atlas appeared, similar whispers followed. Could this too be more than it seemed? Its hyperbolic orbit confirmed its interstellar origin. Its brightness fluctuations hinted at fragility, maybe even fragmentation. But to those inclined toward wonder, these quirks could be interpreted as signals, perhaps intentional, perhaps accidental, of something crafted, not merely born. Imagine, for a moment, if Atlas were an alien artifact. Perhaps it was launched billions of years ago by a civilization long vanished, a relic drifting endlessly through the stars. Its icy body might conceal machinery, sensors, or archives of knowledge. From the outside, it would appear as nothing more than a comet, but inside, it could hold stories of worlds we will never see, voices of beings we will never meet. The idea is breathtaking, though unproven and perhaps unprovable. Others take the speculation further. What if comets like Atlas are deliberate messengers, slow, patient couriers carrying data across interstellar distances? Unlike radio signals, which fade quickly, comets endure. A civilization could encode information in the isotopes of the ice, in the arrangement of molecules, or even in subtle modifications to orbit. If another intelligent species eventually encounters the comet, they would find the message preserved. In this vision, comets are not random, but part of a galactic library, with each system contributing volumes. Then there are the darker imaginings. Some wonder if interstellar objects could be weapons, ancient devices sent to disrupt or destroy. A comet is, after all, a devastating projectile, if steered with intent. Could Atlas be a remnant of such a technology, long abandoned, now drifting without purpose? It is unlikely, yet the very possibility reminds us how thin the line is between natural wonder and existential threat. Even without deliberate design, comets may play a role in alien life. Consider the theory of panspermia, the idea that life spreads across the galaxy via comets and asteroids. If Atlas carries organic molecules, as many comets do, then it may be part of a network of natural seed ships, scattering chemistry wherever they go. Perhaps this is how life began on Earth, delivered by an interstellar fragment billions of years ago. If so, then comets are not only messengers of alien life, but its very gardeners. Psychologically, these extreme theories say as much about us as they do about Atlas. We project onto comets our deepest questions. Are we alone? Are we threatened? Are we connected? The truth may be simple. A fragile chunk of ice wandering the galaxy, but our stories reveal the longings of the human heart. We long for contact, for meaning, for reassurance that we are not an isolated accident in the dark. And there is beauty, even in speculation. To imagine Atlas as a ship, a probe, or a message is to stretch our imagination across light years. Science keeps us grounded, reminding us to seek evidence. But fiction, even if it proves false, keeps us dreaming. And sometimes, dreams precede discoveries. Once, rockets were fantasies in Jules Verne's novels. Once, submarines were fantasies in ancient myths. Perhaps one day, interstellar messengers will prove real. As you drift into rest, let your mind wander with these possibilities. See 3. I divided by Atlas, not just as ice and dust, but as a mystery box gliding silently through the void. Maybe it is empty, nothing but frozen fragments. Maybe it carries seeds of life. Maybe it holds memories of civilizations gone. Or maybe it is simply itself a comet, and nothing more. Yet, even in being nothing more, it inspires us to imagine everything. That is the paradox of the cosmos. The universe is silent, yet it speaks. Its messages may not be deliberate, but we hear them anyway. Comets like Atlas are its whispers, and what we hear in them is as much about us as about the stars. Throughout this journey, 3 I divided by Atlas has carried us through science, myth, and speculation. We have imagined worst-case scenarios, collisions, and the fragility of human life. We have touched the fear of extinction and the whisper of alien possibilities. Yet, as night deepens, the role of such a story changes. Now it becomes less about fear and more about peace. For comets, after all, are not only reminders of danger, they are also reminders of beauty, impermanence, and the comfort of letting go. Fear is natural. When we hear of comets, asteroids, or cosmic threats, our bodies respond with tension. The mind races, imagining endings. This is part of our biology, our survival instinct. But fear, when left unchecked, exhausts us. The gift of storytelling is that it transforms fear into something softer, something manageable. By weaving facts with imagination, by giving shape to the unknown, we allow ourselves to rest within it rather than fight against it. Think of comets not as threats, but as visitors. They arrive suddenly, glow with splendor, and then fade into the dark. They do not linger long enough to harm us. Instead, they offer us a chance to pause, to look up, and to feel small in a way that is strangely comforting. The fear they awaken can be transmuted into wonder, the anxiety into acceptance. Psychologists often speak of reframing, the practice of seeing the same event from a different angle. A comet overhead can be reframed as a reminder of fragility, yes, but also as a reminder of connection. For as you look upward, so do millions of others, scattered across the world, sharing the same sky. In that moment, fear turns into belonging. Even the worst-case scenarios we have imagined serve a hidden purpose. By walking through them in thought, we learn that fear does not destroy us. We can picture catastrophe, and yet we remain here, breathing, safe. This practice of confronting and then releasing fear is ancient. It echoes Buddhist meditations on impermanence and Stoic reflections on mortality. Both traditions remind us that anxiety is not something to be erased, but something to be understood and then softened. Comets like 3I divided by Atlas become perfect teachers of this lesson. Their very nature is fleeting. They blaze brilliantly, stirring the imagination, then vanish forever. To watch one is to practice acceptance, to enjoy the beauty while it lasts, knowing it will not stay. This is the same practice that helps us rest. Sleep, after all, is an act of letting go, a willingness to surrender to darkness and trust that the world will continue without our vigilance. Imagine lying under a night sky as a comet glows faintly above. At first, you feel the weight of its strangeness. What if? Whispers the mind. But then, you breathe. You notice the steady rhythm of your chest rising and falling. You feel the earth beneath you, solid and calm. Slowly, the comet shifts from being a threat to being a lullaby. Its light becomes not a warning, but a comfort, an assurance that even in the vast, unpredictable cosmos, beauty still appears. There is also peace in perspective. When you realize that comets travel for millions of years, that they glide through endless gulfs of silence, your own worries shrink in scale. The arguments, deadlines, and anxieties of daily life become smaller, gentler. They are still real, but they lose their sharp edges. Against the timeline of the universe, they become ripples, not storms. And that realization soothes. So let 3I divided by Atlas be your companion into rest. Let it carry your fears away, trailing them in its tail like dust dispersed into the night. Each anxious thought is just another particle of ice and rock, sublimating into nothingness as it drifts farther from the warmth of your mind. What remains is calm, soft, and steady. Think of the comet as a traveler who has stopped briefly at your window, leaving a gift before moving on. The gift is not fear, but perspective. The gift is not anxiety, but awe. It says to you, you are small, but you are here. You are fragile, but you are luminous. You are temporary, but you are meaningful. As your eyelids grow heavier, imagine the comet receding into the dark, its glow fading with each breath you take. Soon it is only memory, a soft afterimage, like the trace of light when you close your eyes after looking at the stars. And with that memory comes peace. The universe is vast, unpredictable, and sometimes frightening, but it is also beautiful, rhythmic, and endlessly mysterious. Sleep itself mirrors the comet's journey. It comes suddenly, transforms your world, and then carries you gently away into darkness. Like Atlas, your thoughts drift across the void, but instead of fear, they bring dreams. In those dreams, perhaps you will fly alongside the comet, gliding silently through the stars, weightless and free. Or perhaps you will simply rest, safe beneath your blanket, while the universe spins on. So let the fear dissolve. Let the anxiety melt. You have walked through worst-case scenarios and survived them in imagination. Now, in reality, you are safe, warm, and cared for. The comet is already gone, its path fixed, its danger non-existent. All that remains is wonder, and wonder is a gentle companion for sleep. The story of three, I divided by Atlas, is, in many ways, a fleeting one. A comet that entered our solar system, caught our attention for a moment, and then disappeared forever into the dark. Its passage was brief, its glow faint compared to brighter comets of history, and yet, in that briefness, lies something profound. Atlas reminds us that even the smallest encounters with the universe can leave echoes in our imagination, like a quiet chord that lingers long after the music has stopped. Comets are ancient, older than our planet, older than the mountains and oceans. They carry with them the memory of creation, dust, and ice that formed when stars were still young. To see one, even in photographs, is to glimpse the raw material of worlds. To realize that Atlas comes from beyond our system is to glimpse the vast web of connection that ties the galaxy together. We are not isolated. Our sun is not alone. We live in a universe where fragments wander freely, exchanging matter, carrying secrets, bridging distances we cannot yet cross. And this, perhaps, is the quiet poetry of the cosmos. The stars burn with light we cannot touch. The galaxies spin with grandeur we cannot reach. Yet once in a while, the universe sends something small, something tangible, drifting into our neighborhood. It is as if the cosmos leans close and whispers, "Remember, you are part of this too." In myth, comets were omens. In science, they are archives. In philosophy, they are metaphors. But in truth, they are all these things at once. Atlas is not only an object of study, not only a symbol of fear, not only a spark for stories. It is a reminder that the universe resists being reduced to one meaning. It is too vast, too layered. Just as we contain multitudes, fear and love, fragility and strength, the cosmos too contains contradictions. It destroys and creates, frightens and inspires, ends and begins. Think of the way Atlas came and went. It did not linger, did not ask permission. It simply passed, leaving us to interpret its presence however we chose. Some saw danger, imagining collision. Others saw opportunity, dreaming of alien contact. Still others saw only beauty, a glowing smudge against the night. Each perspective was true in its own way. The comet did not care. It simply moved on, indifferent to our projections. And yet, in that indifference, it gave us meaning. There is comfort in this. Life is filled with uncertainty. We often want control, guarantees, answers. But comets remind us that not everything can be controlled, that not everything needs to be answered. Sometimes, the right response is not to master, but to marvel, to see, to wonder, and then to rest. As you prepare to close your eyes, imagine the comet's journey continuing. Beyond the edge of our solar system, it glides into interstellar night once more. Ahead of it lies endless distance, stars scattered like lanterns across a dark ocean. Perhaps it will pass another system millions of years from now, stirring another civilization into wonder. Perhaps it will wander forever, a silent witness to the galaxy's unfolding. Either way, it continues, steady and unhurried. And so do we. Tomorrow will come, with its routines and concerns. But tonight, you are free to drift with the comet, to let its long arc remind you that time is vast and your worries are small. You are safe here, under your blanket, carried by the rhythm of breath, the steady pulse of life. The universe spins, the galaxies flow, and the comets keep their watch. You need do nothing but rest. Perhaps black holes remind us that endings are not always ends, but transformations waiting quietly in the dark. Perhaps comets remind us that arrivals and departures are natural, that beauty does not need permanence to matter. Perhaps stars remind us that light travels far, that even after we are gone, what we shine may still reach someone else. So tonight, let yourself be part of this poetry. You are a traveler too, just as Atlas is. You move through time, through stories, through lives. You blaze briefly, leave your mark, and move on. That is not cause for fear, but for gratitude. For to exist at all, in such a vast and indifferent cosmos, is already a miracle. Close your eyes. Feel the silence around you, the steady beat of your heart. The comet is gone, but its story remains. The stars still spin, the galaxies still flow. And in this quiet moment, you are part of it all. Sleep well, traveler. Sweet dreams,